We're going to start our first project, which is making a work surface. Now before we get started, I'm going to make sure that I have my safety gear on. So first thing, I'm going to make sure that my hair is tied back. Maybe some of you have short hair, and so you don't have to worry about tying your hair back. But if you have long hair, go grab a hair tie, tie it back. Next thing is I'm going to make sure that my safety glasses are on. Now I'm also going to make sure that my sleeves are rolled up. And if any of you have bracelets or dangly jewelry or long sleeves, now's a good time to take your bracelets off and roll up your sleeves. So in your kit, you should see materials for making your workstation. Now what you should have are 2 pairs of 2x4s. One will be long and one will be short. And if you have a tape measure at home, you can see that your long ones are 21 inches and your short ones are 16 inches. You should also have a sheet of plywood and 2 bags full of different size nails. You'll see that some are bigger, these we call 16-penny nails, and some are smaller, these we call 8-penny nails. You should also have a hammer. So what we're doing, I'm going to move some stuff to the side so we have a clear work surface. What we're doing is we're making a frame that we're going to put this sheet of plywood on so that we have this nice flat surface that you will then be able to use to make the rest of your projects on. So I'm going to start by finding my short or 16-inch 2x4s, and you will notice that they have X marks on them. So I'm going to lay them out in front of me, one on my right side, one on my left side, and I'm going to make sure that my X's are facing towards each other, facing the inside. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my long 2x4s, my 21-inch 2x4s, and I'm going to lay them inside my short ones like so. So you see how we're going to make a frame that we will then put this sheet of plywood on top of, and then you'll have this to do all the rest of your projects on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to nail our 2x4s together. We're going to take our larger 16-penny nails and drive them into the wood with our hammer like this. Now for this part of the job, you're going to want a really solid surface to work on, and our table here is pretty wobbly. So I'm going to move to the ground to make sure I have a solid work surface. So if you have a solid table at home, keep doing this on your table, but if not, the ground is a good alternative. So now we've got our frame down on the ground, and our next step is to nail the corners of our frame together like so. So before we do that, we are going to talk about the hammer. So this is a hammer. You should have one in your kit. This part is called the head of the hammer, and these 2 prongs in the back are called the claw of the hammer. The head is for pounding and the claw is for prying. So you will notice on the handle of your hammer is that it's kind of skinny on the top, and then it bulges out, and then the bulge goes back in just a little bit right about where this tape is. That's where your hand goes when you're holding and swinging your hammer. Swinging a hammer can be a fun thing to practice. Okay, so now we're down on the ground, we've got our frame laid out. And something you may remember is that your short pieces have X's on them like this. Your long pieces also have X's on the end. So when you lay your frame out, you will make sure that your X's are touching each other. So our next step is going to be to hammer in some nails into the corners of our frame like so. Okay, so before we hammer our pieces together, we're going to start by setting our nails. So we're going to take this piece, set it flat on the ground like that, and then you should have 4 holes that are pre-drilled. You're going to set your nail into one hole and start by tapping it lightly. Remember, you want to tap it lightly at first so that you don't accidentally smash down on your fingers. So you're going to tap it lightly, and then you're going to move your hand away and hit it a little bit harder until your nail sinks in. Now you're not sinking your nail in all the way. You definitely don't want it to poke through the other side yet. You're just kind of giving yourself a little head start before you have to hold your wood into position. So you do one nail and then the other. Now you'll take your piece of wood back up into place and you're going to nail your 2x4s together. So when you're nailing your boards together, you're going to want a hand on this one, a hand on this one, and a hand to hold and swing your hammer. Now since you don't have 3 hands, what you can do is ask someone in your quarantine bubble to hold this piece of wood out here for you. Or if you don't have that extra hand, you can move your body over and set your knee on this board that you're nailing against. You could even go so far as to set a knee on each board. Alright, so we got our first nail in. Now this part of nailing can be kind of frustrating. There can be some things that go wrong. If when you're hammering your wood is moving around too much and your one piece of wood gets off of its mark, just stop hammering and move it back onto your mark. If you're finding it's moving around too much and it's not solid enough, you can try to put even more weight on it, or you can even try to find a block to put behind it. And something else that can happen is your nail might not go the way that you want it to, and you might end up accidentally bending a nail. This is very, very common, and this is no big deal. There's a simple way to fix this. You can just pull these out with your hammer, and this is what that claw part of your hammer is for. So the way to pull this nail is you're going to stand on your board, get your claws wrapped around that nail. Make sure the head of the hammer is touching the wood, and you're going to pry against it like so. Now sometimes, like this one, you might find that this nail is really, really stuck in there and your little hammer isn't quite big enough to pry it out that way. So another trick you can try is to put your claws on your nail like this instead of like this, and you're going to pry sideways, like that. And when you get it up, take your claws back, put them back on down below, and pry it again. So this will ruin your nail, but you can start again. You should have plenty of extra nails in your kit. So now we're going to nail everything together. Now that I've got one nail each on this end, I'm going to try bringing it up like this, and then I can drive my nails in from above, which is easier to do. So now that your frame looks like this, you're going to flip it over and get your final side attached. Okay, final 2 nails. Whoops. And I can see that I'm off my mark a little bit, so I'm going to use my hammer to tap this board back where I want it. Okay, so now we have our frame all nailed together, and the next step is to put our plywood onto our frame. So we're going to set it down on the ground like so, and we'll bring our sheet of plywood from our kit over, and you're going to line it up on top of your frame. It should be cut so it fits on there just right. And now you will notice that there are holes pre-drilled on the corner of your sheets of plywood. So here you see one hole in your corner, and each corner will have a hole like this. Okay, so with your plywood lined up just right on your frame, you're going to take your smaller nails, your 8-penny nails, and set them in each of your corners that are pre-drilled. So again, you're going to start by lightly tapping, and then you're going to move your hand away, and you can put downward pressure on this board as you're hammering. And there you go, you got your first corner set. So now I've got my second nail, I'm going to do my second corner, and before I pound it in, I'm going to check to make sure that my board is still lined up on the frame where I want it. And I can tell that this board moved quite a bit when I nailed the last nail. So I'm just going to scoot this over back in alignment with its frame and get my second nail in. Now I'm just going to do that 2 more times in each corner. Okay, so now we're on our last step. We're going to put some more nails into the plywood to secure it more tightly to the frame. So on your long edges of your workstation, you're going to put 4 more nails in on each edge. So you want to eyeball about 4 evenly spaced dots. And you can do this by taking your pencil and making little marks for yourself so you know where you want your nails to go. And this does not have to be perfect. Just about 4 evenly spaced dots like that. And you want to make sure that your dots are in a line with where your nails are on each corner. So you don't want to be too far inward, because otherwise your nail won't sink into the frame wood below. You also don't want to be too far outward, because otherwise your nail might kick out and it might stick out the side. Okay, we've got one of our long sides nailed off, and now we're going to do the same thing on the top long side. We're going to take our pencil and mark about 4 equally spaced dots, and we'll put 4 more nails in. Okay. Now we're going to put in 2 more nails on each side. These are our shorter sides. So you're going to do the same thing. Take your pencil and eyeball about two dots that are evenly spaced from the corners. And this does not have to be perfect. And again, you're going to want to make sure that your dots are in line with your 2 corner nails. This is another moment where you might swing, miss, and bend a nail. Not to worry. You can pry your nail up with the claw of your hammer, just like that. Now you could try to pull it all the way out. You also could see if maybe you can hammer it until it's straight again, and you just try again. Yay! made yourself a solid working surface, and this is going to help you when you make your other projects. So if you've been working on the ground like me, you can pick up your workstation and walk back over to your working table.